Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 4, Chapter number 24, text number 55. Tam duraradyam aradya. Tam duraradyam aradya. Satamapi durapaya. Satamapi durapaya. Ekanta bhaktya ko vanchet. Ekanta bhaktya ko vanchet. Padamulam vinabahi. Padamulam vinabahi. Tam duraradyam aradya. Satamapi durapaya. Ekanta bhaktya ko vanchet. Padamulam vinabahi. Tam duraradyam aradya. Satamapi durapaya. Ekanta bhaktya ko vanchet. Padamulam vinabahi. Word for word translation. Tam, unto you. Duraradyam, very difficult to worship. Aradya, having worshipped. Satam, satamapi, even for the most exalted persons. Durapaya, very difficult to attain. Ekanta, pure. Bhaktya, by devotional service. Ka, who is that man? Vanchet, should desire. Padamulam, lotus feet. Vina, without. Bahi, outsiders. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. My dear Lord, pure devotional service is even difficult for liberated persons to discharge. But devotional service alone can satisfy you. Who will take to other processes of self-realization if he is actually serious about the perfection of life? Purport. The word satam refers to transcendentalists. There are three kinds of transcendentalists: the jnani, yogi, and bhakta. Out of these three, the bhakta is selected as the most suitable candidate to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is emphasized herein that only one who is outside devotional service would not engage in searching for the lotus feet of the Lord. Foolish people sometimes maintain that God may be attained in any way, either by karma yoga, jnana yoga, etc. But here it is clearly stated that it is impossible to obtain the mercy of the Lord by any means but bhakti yoga. The word dura rajya is especially significant. It is very difficult to attain the lotus feet of the Lord by any method other than bhakti yoga. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksul Metam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktarinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Today is also the most auspicious day of Gita Jayanti. Today is also Mokshada Ekadasi. So on this very auspicious day, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. So we'll try to discuss a little bit about this verse, and at the same time we'll try to discuss a bit about the glories of Bhagavad Gita. And the glories, especially the glories of Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. If it wasn't for Srila Prabhupada, we wouldn't be here today. If it wasn't for Srila Prabhupada, we wouldn't be here hearing this class. We'll most likely be still, sleeping in bed or, eating some sinful food or watching TV or all of the above, together. So because of Prabhupada's mercy, we have Bhagavad Gita. Because of Prabhupada's mercy, we have Srimad Bhagavatam. We're here practicing bhakti. So as Lord Shiva mentions here, so currently we're reading chapter 24 of 4th canto. It's known as the Rudra Geet. Geet means song. Just like Bhagavad Gita is the song sung by Bhagavan himself, Krishna himself. Same way Rudra Geet means the song sung by Lord Shiva. So there's a series of beautiful prayers Lord Shiva is offering to Krishna, and he's teaching these prayers to the Prachetas. So in today's prayer, Lord Shiva is saying that it is only by bhakti or devotional service, unalloyed devotional service, that one can satisfy you, my dear Lord. And in the purport, Prabhupada further elaborates, that there is many processes, karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, but out of all these processes, it is only by bhakti that Krishna is satisfied. It is only by bhakti can one understand Krishna. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, bhaktya mam abhijanati. It is only through devotional service that I can be understood. So if you look at the Gita, the Acharyas explain that the whole book, Bhagavad Gita, it's like a treasure chest. We've all seen in movies, there'll be like this nice big treasure chest, it'll be like a big box. And inside the treasure chest would be all the treasure. All the jewels, diamonds, gold coins will be inside. So the treasure chest will have a lid, right? The box will have a lid, so that's the top part of the treasure chest. Then there is the middle section, where all the actual treasure is. Then there is the base of the treasure chest, right? So the box will have a base, a bottom. In the middle will be the treasure, and on the top will be the lid that covers the treasure chest. So the Acharyas say that Bhagavad Gita, it's like that. It's like a treasure chest. And you can divide the Bhagavad Gita into 3 sections. The first 6 chapters, the middle 6 chapters, and then the last 6 chapters. So there's 18 chapters to Bhagavad Gita. The first 6 chapters, that's like the top of the treasure chest. The middle 6 chapters, which talk only about Bhakti Yoga, that's considered as the real treasure of the Bhagavad Gita. It's hidden in the middle. Then there is the last 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. That's considered as the base of the treasure chest. So in the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he talks about the yoga ladder. He talks about all the different types of yoga, different ways one can connect with him. So in the first 6 chapters, Krishna talks about karma yoga, jnana yoga, and dhyana yoga. And at the end of the 6th chapter, Krishna concludes, actually out of all these processes, bhakti yoga is the topmost. Yoginam api sarvesam mad ganten antaratmanam. So then from chapter 7 to 12, Krishna will talk only about bhakti. Then the last 6 chapters, 13 to 18, Krishna will elaborate on the 3 modes of material nature, so on and so forth. So these middle 6 chapters of Gita, chapter 7 to 12, where Krishna talks only about bhakti, that is considered as the real treasure of the Bhagavad Gita. Just like in a treasure chest, you have the top, the lid, you have the base, but where's the treasure? The treasure is in the middle. That is the most important, the most valuable. So same way, the middle 6 chapters of the Gita, that is the most valuable, that is where the treasure is hidden. Because they talk only about bhakti. And that's what Lord Shiva is saying in today's prayer, that it is only by bhakti, it is only by pure devotional service that you can be known, my dear Lord. His Holiness Indradumna Swami Maharaj, he shares one Sankirtan story. He was saying somewhere in Europe, devotees, they were distributing books, and they came across a soldier, a European who serves as a soldier in the army or navy. And he gets sold the Bhagavad Gita. If you don't mind, can you just get me a Gita? Since today is Gita Jayanti, I might use it. So this soldier, he gets sold the Bhagavad Gita of Srila Prabhupada. And the devotee who sells him this Bhagavad Gita, he explains to this soldier that, the person who wrote this book, he's actually coming. So this person who sold the Gita to the soldier, he told him that, this person here written, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, he's the author of this book, Bhagavad Gita as it is, and he's actually here, not here in your city, but 10 hours away, he's going to land in another, I forgot the other European city or country. He's going to be there. If you like, you can personally meet him, and you can personally, get the book signed by him, and you can personally meet the author, the great guru who wrote this book. And the soldier, he was like, very excited. He's like, yeah, I'll do it. And this soldier, he drove 10 hours from his city, or whichever European city or country he was living in, and he drove across the border to another city where Prabhupada had just arrived to meet Prabhupada. And this soldier goes and meets Prabhupada, and devotees introduce him. They say, he's a soldier in the army, and he just bought your Gita, and he's driven, like 10 hours just to come and meet you, Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada is very happy, Here's this man, who works in the army, he's bought my Gita. Prabhupada was very pleased. And Prabhupada was encouraging this person, to read the book. And as many people often do, they give the excuse that I don't have time to read. I'm very busy. I have very little time. I don't think I can read this whole book. It's so big. And Prabhupada, he explained to this soldier, to this man, that don't worry. If you don't have time to read, just read 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Just read 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita has the whole essence of the whole Gita. If you simply read 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, you will get the gist, you will get the essence of the whole Gita. So on this particular occasion, Prabhupada explains that if you don't have time, just read 9th chapter. So that's the chapter where so many beautiful, powerful verses will come, all about the process of bhakti, or pure devotional service. So this is where the real treasure is. The real treasure is in bhakti. And as Lord Shiva explains, if someone tries to approach Krishna through any other process, very, very difficult. Practically impossible. So as we were mentioning before, it is only by Prabhupada's mercy we have Gita, we are practicing bhakti. In the introduction to Gita, Prabhupada explains that before he wrote Bhagavad Gita as it is, there were so many other editions of Bhagavad Gita already published. Hundreds of different editions of Bhagavad Gita already published. But Prabhupada explains, outside of India, although there is so many editions of Gita, there is not one devotee of Krishna outside of India. Then Prabhupada explains, after we wrote this book, Bhagavad Gita as it is, now you go to any city, any country, in any part of the world, you'll find Hare Krishna devotees. You'll find devotees of Krishna. So Prabhupada says, this is the potency of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Before I wrote this book, Bhagavad Gita as it is, Prabhupada says, there was already so many Gitas, but no devotees of Krishna outside of India. After I wrote this edition of Gita, Bhagavad Gita as it is, whichever country you go to, whichever city you go to, you'll find people chanting Hare Krishna, worshipping Krishna. So this is the potency of Prabhupada's Gita. Why is this so potent? Because, as Prabhupada has named it, it is as it is. Prabhupada hasn't tampered the meaning, he's giving the meaning as it is coming through disciplic succession, through his purports. His Grace Navin Narad Prabhu, he explains that Prabhupada's purports, they're like Chandramrit. During the year we have many Abhisheks, right? How many Abhisheks do we have? We have, I think first Nityananda Trayodasi, Gaur Purnima, right? Radha Gopinath's anniversary, Janmastami, Radhastami, and Snan Yatra. Sorry? Nashima Chaturdas, we don't have Abhishek in our temple. So we have, here in Sydney, we have 6 Abhisheks during the year. So after the Abhishek is over, what do? We honor the Chandramrit, right? And how does the Chandramrit taste? Like nectar, right? We can just go on gulping as much. That's why it's called Amrita, it's like nectar. So why is it so nectarian? Because so many different things go into it, right? Ghee, yogurt, sugar, honey, and so many different juices. Here in Sydney, they blend so many juices. Watermelon juice, berry juice, so many different juices, mango juice. And they all offer that to the Lord. That all gets mixed, all these nectarian liquids, and it all combines together and it comes as Chandramrit. And when we drink that, it's like so nectarian, so tasty. So Navinara Prabhu explains that Prabhupada's purports in Gita and other books, they're like Chandramrit. Why? Because Prabhupada, when he's writing these purports, he's taking the essence of all the different acharyas coming in our parampara. He's taking one point from one acharya, another point from another acharya, another point from another acharya in our disciplic succession. For example, Vishnava Chakri Thakur, Baladev Vidyabhushan, Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Jiva Goswami, Srila Sanatan Goswami, his own spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, Sridhar Swami. So like this, all these great acharyas coming in our disciplic succession, Prabhupada takes a little bit from there, combines it together and gives it as one nectarian purport. So in this way, Navinara Prabhu explains that each one of Prabhupada's purports, they're like Chandramrit. That's why it tastes like nectar. We're getting the essence of all the different acharyas, all combined in one purport for one verse, for each and every verse, which Prabhupada gives in a way that we can understand, the modern man can understand. If you think about it, every author, when he writes a book, he will have a particular audience in mind, right? So when someone is publishing a book, this book I am writing for this group of people, or this book I am writing for this group of people. When Prabhupada wrote Bhagavad Gita as it is, when Prabhupada wrote his other books, what was his audience he had in mind? His audience was the whole world. So such a big task. He had to write these books, he had to translate the verses, and he had to write these purports, not just to appeal to Indians, not just to appeal to Americans, but to appeal to each and every human being across the whole planet. So this was Prabhupada's massive task. He had to write a book, or write so many books, with the audience as the whole world. So if you think about it, you're an author, and you're writing a book which needs to appeal to each and every person in the whole planet. That's such a great task. Not only that, ordinary authors, when they write a book, they're just writing for one generation or a few generations. After a few generations, everyone forgets about that book. So it's only for a certain period of time, for a certain group of audience, they're writing that book. But Prabhupada, his audience is the whole world, and his audience is not just for this generation, next generation, or for people in the next 50 years, or people in the next 100 years. But Prabhupada said, my books, his books will be the law books of mankind for the next 10,000 years. Amazing, right? Now, which author in this world writes a book thinking, I will write this book that will appeal to every single human being on this planet, not just for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, but for 10,000 years. Never done before in history. But Prabhupada did it. When he wrote Bhagavad Gita as it is, when he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada wrote these books in such a way that any single human being in any part of the world, he can read it and he can understand about Krishna. Having that in mind, Prabhupada wrote these purports, and the time scale Prabhupada wrote it in such a way that these books will help people come closer to Krishna, will help people take up bhakti and go back home, back to Godhead, not just for human beings being born in the next 50 years, 100 years, but for the next 10,000 years. For us, it's even difficult to imagine 100 years or 1,000 years, what to speak of 10,000 years. But this was Prabhupada's vision. So the more we meditate on this, the more we'll be astonished about what Srila Prabhupada actually did. Even if you go by material statistics, if we study the history about authors whose books have sold the most number of copies. Any guesses which author's books has sold the most number of copies in terms of statistics? Yeah. Yes, so Harry Potter is up there. Harry Potter is number 2. Number 1 is Prabhupada. If you go on World Sankirtan newsletter.com, I think it's called WSN.com. It stands for World Sankirtan Newsletter. And they have like this website. In there you'll see, till date, so far, Prabhupada's books have sold more than 500 million copies. More than 500 million. Harry Potter is somewhere around there, around the same. Even if Prabhupada's, and this is only reported, many devotees in different parts of the world, they distribute books. Some gets reported, to the newsletter or to the temple authorities, but many books that gets distributed of Prabhupada is not reported. So in terms of reported scores, it's all more than 500 million already of Prabhupada's books has gone out, has been sold on the streets. Now, Harry Potter has sold about the similar amount. Even if, let's say, Prabhupada's books is a bit less than how much Harry Potter has sold, very soon Prabhupada's books will take over. Because after some time, it's not like Harry Potter books will continue to be sold, for 10 years, 100 years. After 50 years, everyone will forget about it. No one will read it. But, as Srila Prabhupada said, for the next 10,000 years, his books will be the law books of mankind. So Prabhupada's books will continue being sold. And from 500 million, it will go to 1 billion. From 1 billion, it will go to 2 billion. From 2 billion, it will go to 3 billion. So even if we look at material statistics, material figures, in the history of this planet Earth, Prabhupada is the best-selling author. No other author's books have been sold as much as Srila Prabhupada's. And when did he write all these books? At the age of 70. At the age of 70, people, they barely even, get out of their home. Right? Before they leave the home, they think twice. Should I get out? Even it said, before they stand up, they will think twice. Because the whole body is completely gone. At that age, Prabhupada did, how many world tours? More than 12 world tours. So Prabhupada, in any angle you try to analyze Prabhupada's life, is just completely astonishing. Prabhupada he met his spiritual master in 1922. And during his first meeting, Srila Prabhupada was very impressed by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And Prabhupada mentions that in his first meeting itself, Prabhupada accepted his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, as his spiritual master. But formal Diksha, he only took 10 years later, in 1932. But during those 10 years, he was always meditating on the instruction his Guru Maharaj gave, which is to preach this message of Lord Chaitanya in the Western world. And later on, when Prabhupada, he further writes a letter to his Guru Maharaj. This is just before his Guru Maharaj disappears from this planet. Prabhupada writes a letter asking his spiritual master, what service can I do? And again, his Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur again emphasized on the same thing, that preach this message of Lord Chaitanya in the English-speaking language. And personally, he had instructed Srila Prabhupada to, if you ever get money, print books. Print and publish books. So Prabhupada, as a householder, he was very busy. He had a family to maintain. He was running a pharmacy business. And as part of his business, he had to do a lot of traveling to get, if we read Lilamrit, we can read all the details. As part of his pharmacy business, he had to do a lot of traveling around India. But despite this busy schedule, whenever Prabhupada used to get time, he used to write. He started translating Bhagavad Gita, and he started writing purports to Bhagavad Gita. And during this time, he also started Back to Godhead magazines, writing articles. So it's mentioned Prabhupada had different notebooks. Whenever he got a little time, he would just start writing, scribbling something down. Sometimes what he would write will be in the same book in which he would have his different formulas, for the different medicines for his pharmacy. Then later on, when he would get time, he will get all the notes together and he would start typing them up, in proper manuscript. So like this, after some time, Prabhupada, he managed to translate and type out purports for the whole Gita in English, following the instruction of his Guru Maharaj. And this manuscript came to about 1,200 pages, 1,200 pages. So many years of hard work. Prabhupada would write in this notebook, write in that notebook, whenever he get little time. Then later on, he would sit at his typewriter and type them out properly, combining the notes together. So like this, after a lot of hard work, during his time as a householder, Prabhupada had finished a 1,200-page manuscript for the whole Gita. And Prabhupada's vision was, he will find someone to sponsor the printing. And Prabhupada's vision was, he will publish the Gita in 3 nice volumes. Okay, 1,200 pages altogether, so each volume may be 400 each. So like this, nice 3-volume Gita. But he didn't have money to publish it. He was looking for someone to sponsor the printing. So in the course of Prabhupada's traveling around India for his pharmacy business, one time he was in South India. And again he was talking with another medical salesman. And in the course of the conversation, Srila Prabhupada showed this man a part of his manuscript, part of his translation and purports that he had typed out for Bhagavad Gita. And this man, he was very impressed. And Prabhupada told him that actually I have a whole 1,200-page manuscript. I'm just simply looking for someone to sponsor the printing, and then I can publish this. This is the order of my Guru Maharaj. And this man that Prabhupada met, he told him that he has very good contacts with a very, very wealthy businessman in South India. And this businessman, he is very religious. And definitely, if you he might be interested in sponsoring and publishing your whole book. Then Prabhupada was so excited. Finally a breakthrough. Because for so many years, after Prabhupada's Guru Maharaj disappeared, that whole institution, of Gaudiya Math, his Guru Maharaj had created, kind of basically broke apart. And the preaching died out. If we read Lilamrit, we can read the details. And all the Prabhupada's god brothers, all the sannyasis, big Maharajas in Gaudiya Math, instead of continuing on the preaching mission, they were just managing their own mathas. They were just managing their own temples, not doing much preaching work. Prabhupada single-handedly, as a grahastha, as a householder, whenever he got little time, he used to write and translate. So after so much hard work, he had finally, finished this 1200-page manuscript for Gita. And now here is an opportunity that there's someone ready to sponsor and publish the whole book. And later on, this friend of his tells him that I showed part of your manuscript, and this businessman, he's interested. He's asking for you to send him the full manuscript. He will sponsor the full printing and he will publish your book. So finally, after so many years of hard work, a breakthrough. So then Prabhupada, he immediately goes back to his home, and he comes to home to get the full manuscript so he can again travel back to South India and give it to the businessman to print and publish. When he goes back home, he searches his whole house. He can't find the manuscript anywhere. The manuscript is stolen. Can you imagine? After so many years, we've all, for university or school, we've all written essays, right? Even just to write a 2, 3, 4-page essay takes so much time and effort, so much hard work. We'll spend like nights, just typing out essays. But here is someone, for so many years, he's typing out and written a 1200-page manuscript of Bhagavad Gita. And after so many years of hard work, finally there is someone who is saying that he will sponsor and print the whole book that he has written. Then when he goes to get the manuscript, he finds out the whole manuscript is stolen. And he can't find it anywhere. Can you imagine how much, if it was us, we would be like, what is this, Krishna, For your sake only I did this, for like so many years I spent hard work. And now finally when it's time for printing, it's just gone. The manuscript's gone, it's stolen. So we'll be like completely crushed. But Prabhupada, he was so detached, he just, okay, it's Krishna's will. He's the supreme controller. What to do? So Prabhupada didn't give up. He continued on writing. First book Prabhupada wrote was Easy Journey to Other Planets. So that's the first actual book Prabhupada published. Then later on, Prabhupada started translating Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, and it was Bhagavatam that Prabhupada took to America. Once Prabhupada got to America, he then started to rewrite again the purports for Bhagavad Gita. He was saying, okay, now I'm here in America, definitely Gita we have to publish and get it out there. But then again, in New York, when Prabhupada was staying in a small, tiny room, someone again breaks into his room and steals his typewriter, steals his tape recorder, and some of his books from his book bag. Again, another huge setback. Does Prabhupada give up? No. He again, okay, Krishna's will, what to do? He just continues on. Like nothing can, if you think about the challenges Prabhupada faced, the setbacks Prabhupada faced, nothing we face in life can compare to the challenges, difficulties, obstacles that Prabhupada faced. Whatever we face in life is like nothing in comparison to what Prabhupada faced. Srila Prabhupada once said, I had to literally walk on fire to establish ISKCON. So we can't even imagine, just touching fire like that. What to speak of walking on fire. But Prabhupada, this is Prabhupada's own words, Prabhupada said, I had to literally walk on fire to establish ISKCON, to establish this movement. So after so many setbacks, after so many years, in 1965 or 1966, finally Prabhupada again For a second time, he rewrites the whole Gita. The first time he had written, it came to about 1200 pages, and I think it was 1948 or 1949 when it was stolen. Then fast forward many years later, in 1966, more than 15 years later, Prabhupada finished writing the purports and translation to Gita again for a second time. This time it comes to about 1,000 pages. So he has finished writing the purports for Gita for a second time. Now again, the challenge is, who will publish it? So initially, Prabhupada, he goes to Allen Ginsberg, who was a big celebrity at that time, and he was very favorable. He was very supportive of the devotees. Prabhupada had good friendship and connection with this celebrity. So initially he goes to Allen Ginsberg, and he tells them, that I have this manuscript for Gita. This is such an important book. I want to publish it. Can you please, with your influence, can you go and please see if you can find some company that will publish this book. This person, Allen Ginsberg, he tried. He came back to Prabhupada. He said, sorry, I couldn't find anyone who's ready to publish your book. Then at this time, there was one early disciple of Prabhupada, Brahmananda Prabhu. So in Lilamrit, we'll hear about Brahmananda Prabhu, one of the very early disciples of Prabhupada, who helped Prabhupada a lot. Then Prabhupada comes to this Brahmananda Prabhu and asks him. And Prabhupada gives this service to him. That, we have this manuscript Bhagavad Gita, I finished it, but we need to publish it. Please, some or other, find someone who will publish this book. And Brahmananda Prabhu, he explains, he had no idea about publishing, how it works. So what he did, he went and bought books about how to publish books. And he was even thinking about enrolling in university in a course about book publication, because he literally had no idea about what it means to publish a book. Then one day what happened? At that time, devotees, they had released an album, I think the Happening album, with some kirtans. And that was very popular. And they were getting mail orders from different people to deliver them the album. One mail order for this Happening album one day came from Macmillan Company. Macmillan Company, at that time, was a very famous company that publishes books. They had published many, many hundreds of books. So when Brahmananda Prabhu saw this, that the Macmillan Company is ordering, one of our albums, immediately he took it to Prabhupada and he showed Prabhupada. Prabhupada, just look at this. Macmillan Company, they're like a huge book publishing company. They want our Happening album. Then Prabhupada, he immediately told him, this is, Krishna's arrangement. What you do tomorrow, you go to the Macmillan headquarters yourself, and you personally go with the CD and you hand it over to them in person. Don't just mail it to them, but you in person go and give to that person. And you tell them that I know a guru who has come from India, and he has a copy, he has a manuscript for the whole Bhagavad Gita, and he's looking for someone to publish it. You just simply tell them that, and they will say yes, and they will publish it. And Prabhupada said it with such confidence that Brahmananda Prabhu, he was shocked, like, really? I just go and tell them, I know a guru who has a manuscript of Bhagavad Gita, and they'll just say yes, and they'll just publish it. But Prabhupada said with such confidence that he just accepted it. Okay, that's what I'll do. So next day, Brahmananda Prabhu, he dresses in nice suit, coat, tie, all dressed, very formally, like a businessman. And he goes to the building of Macmillan Company. And then he finds the person in the Macmillan Company who had ordered the CD. But he's disappointed. They thought that must be some high official, in the Macmillan Company who had ordered the CD, and then he can talk with the high official and get them to publish Prabhupada's Gita. But actually it was just some ordinary, cleaner or some ordinary worker in the company who had ordered the CD. So then he was disappointed. He was like, it's just some ordinary guy in the company who ordered the CD. Like, who will I thought it would be some big manager in the company, who had ordered. So he's there just with the ordinary worker, he gave him the CD. And as they're talking, one big, high executive person of the company just walks into the room where Brahmananda Prabhu is with the ordinary worker. And this person that walks in, he's apparently one of the big editors of the company. And this ordinary worker immediately introduces that editor of the company to Brahmananda Prabhu and tells him about who he is, and they introduce. And then Brahmananda Prabhu, when he finds out that this person is like the main editor of the company, he's like, this is the opportunity, this is my only chance. He immediately repeats whatever Prabhupada had taught him. Prabhupada said, you just simply tell them that I know a guru who has just come from India, who has the whole manuscript of Bhagavad Gita. And that's what Brahmananda Prabhu tells this person. And when he tells this to this person is completely shocked. And this person tells Brahmananda Prabhu, no way. Currently, the Macmillan Company, we're on a spree of publishing all kinds of religious books. And we've published so many different religious books from all over the world on spirituality and religion. The only thing missing in our spiritual library is the Bhagavad Gita. And we've been searching for a proper manuscript of Bhagavad Gita to publish for so long. That's the only missing book. And now here you are saying there's a guru from India who has a full manuscript of Bhagavad Gita. When Brahmananda hears this, he's just like completely shocked. And then he remembers that, okay, Prabhupada knew this. That's why with such confidence he said, you just go and tell them, I know a guru who has a copy of Gita, who has a manuscript of Gita, they will publish it. So Brahmananda Prabhu, he says that Prabhupada knew this. That's why he sent it with such confidence. So next day, Prabhupada, he himself comes with his manuscript, 1,000-page manuscripts, and he meets the officials and he hands it over to the Macmillan Company and they agree to publish it. But originally, the Gita of Prabhupada, the Macmillan Company published, was an abridged version. They couldn't publish the full or shortened down version of the Gita they published, so many of the verses wasn't there. So originally it was an abridged version of around 400 pages. But later on, 1971 or 72, they published the full edition of Bhagavad Gita. If we look at the start of the Gita, there's the preface. First is setting the scene, done by the publishers. Then there's the preface to Bhagavad Gita, written by Srila Prabhupada. This preface of Bhagavad Gita, does anyone know where Prabhupada wrote this preface? Yes. So the preface to Bhagavad Gita as it is, Prabhupada wrote in Sydney. Another interesting fact, Srila Prabhupada arrived in Sydney for the first time on a Sunday, 9th of May. And Prabhupada brought Shri Radha Gopinath with him. The next day, Monday, 10th of May, Srila Prabhupada installed Shri Radha Gopinath in the suburb of Paddington. That's near Darlinghurst. So that was on a Monday. So on a Sunday, 9th of May, you can read this in Great Transcendental Adventure by Kurma Prabhu, Prabhupada disciple. So Prabhupada lands in Sydney, first time, 9th of May on Sunday. Next day, Monday, 10th of May, Prabhupada installs Shri Radha Gopinath. Shri Radha Gopinath ki jai. Not only does Prabhupada initiate Radha Gopinath, but on that same day, Prabhupada initiates many disciples. Because now he has installed deities, but you need brahmanas to worship the deities, and there's no brahmanas. So Prabhupada gives first initiation to many new devotees, and those who are already devotees, he gives them just directly second initiation. So they can worship Radha Gopinath. So everything happens in one day. So that was on a Monday. Then there's Tuesday. Then on Wednesday morning, 12th of May, Prabhupada writes the preface of Bhagavad Gita. So many historic things all happen in a few days actually. On Sunday, 9th of May, Prabhupada arrives in Sydney first time. 10th of May, Prabhupada installs Radha Gopinath on a Monday. Then Tuesday goes. Then on Wednesday, early morning, Wednesday, here in Sydney only, Prabhupada writes the preface for Bhagavad Gita, for the full edition of Bhagavad Gita, which was later published by Macmillan Company in the next year. So like this is a little bit of a history of Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, how it was published. When, then obviously later on when we got BBT then took charge of publishing all of Prabhupada's books. In books, the main thing on any cover will be the title of the book, right? And then along with the title, there will be the name of the author. There will be those two things will be on the cover of each and every single book, right? One main thing will be the title of the book. Second thing that will be on the cover is the name of the author. And in different books, the arrangement will be different. Some books, the title will be at the bottom half of the book, and the author's name will be on the top half of the book. Other books, the author's name will be at the bottom and the title will be at the top. Like this, there will be like different combinations, arrangements of where the title goes and where the name of the author goes. So initially, when devotees designed the cover, the way they did it, they wrote Prabhupada's name at the top of the book. And they wrote Bhagavad Gita towards the bottom of the book. The title Bhagavad Gita was at the bottom and Prabhupada's name was at the top. When Prabhupada saw that, what did Prabhupada say? Prabhupada said, you take my name and you put it at the bottom and put Bhagavad Gita at the top. Why? Because I am servant of Bhagavad Gita. I am servant of Krishna. Servant always goes at the bottom. So you put my name at the bottom, you put Bhagavad Gita at the top. Amazing, right? Prabhupada's consciousness. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So like this, there's so many beautiful pastimes about Prabhupada and Bhagavad Gita. Let me see what else we can talk about. Oh, okay. One very nice story I will share about the power of Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. This story is about how the first Gita was distributed in Russia. At that time, Russia was under the communist regime. It was called the Iron Curtain. No one could go in. If someone was found having any kind of religious books, they would be prosecuted. They'll be put in jail. They'll be tortured, killed like that. Some or other, Prabhupada got a chance to go to Russia, to go to Moscow. I think it's like the capital city of Russia. And Prabhupada got an opportunity to stay there for just a few days. And Shamashundra Prabhu, he was arranged to travel with Prabhupada. So he's just about to fly from wherever he is with Prabhupada to go into Russia. And everyone knows, Russia, you can't bring anything in. It's like super strict. If they catch you preaching or doing anything, they will put you in jail. So Shamashundra Prabhu, he had his suitcase and he had the Gita in the suitcase. And he was looking at the Gita, he was saying, no, I shouldn't take the Gita, this is illegal. If they catch me taking Gita into their country, there'll be big trouble, I'll be interrogated, we can be put in jail. So what he does, he takes the Gita out of his suitcase and he just puts it, outside of his suitcase on his bed. Then he closes his suitcase and he leaves the room. Then his wife, Malati Mataji, she walks into the room. And she sees her husband's suitcase is closed, but the Gita is next to the suitcase, outside the suitcase. So what she thinks, my husband, he must have forgotten to pack the Gita in the suitcase. So without his knowing, and without her knowing that he had purposely taken the Gita out, innocently she thinks, my husband must have forgotten to take the Gita in his suitcase. So she opens the suitcase and puts the Gita back in the box, back in the suitcase. And Shamashundra Prabhu doesn't know this. He takes the suitcase and he travels with Prabhupada. And he's there in the airport of Moscow with the suitcase, with the Gita inside. He doesn't know the Gita is inside. His wife had mistakenly put it inside his suitcase. And then he's there in Moscow airport, and the officials, they open his suitcase, and guess what he sees? The Gita comes out. And he's shocked, like, this Gita I took out, somehow it went in the suitcase, and these officials, now they found the Gita. But there was like some papers he had in the Gita. As the Gita came out, these papers also came out. And then he created a big commotion. Oh, my papers, what do you guys do? My official papers, you went like this. He created a big commotion. And the commotion he created, it kind of worried the official who was there. And he said, sorry. And instead of checking what was in the suitcase, they just put everything back in the suitcase and just let him go. So somehow the Gita escaped the vision of the officials in the airport, and they were let through. So there they are in Moscow, and they have the Gita with them. And you can read about this in Lilamrit, other books. While Prabhupada was there in Moscow for a few days, it's already 8:56. I have to shorten down the story. Prabhupada came across one Russian young man who was very interested. So cutting the long story short, Prabhupada for one day, he only had few days in Russia. For 1 or 2 days, Prabhupada just preached to this one young Russian man who was very interested. And along with this Russian man was another Indian young guy. He wasn't so much interested, but this young Russian guy, he was very interested. And Prabhupada preached to him. In one day, Prabhupada gave him whatever he could. The whole Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada just gave it to him in one day. Prabhupada even taught him how to cook, how to offer prasad, everything. He just gave him, Krishna consciousness just packed in one day. And then before Prabhupada had to leave, that personal Gita of Shama Sundar Prabhu, Prabhupada took it and gave it to this young man as a gift. And that's how the first Bhagavad Gita was distributed in Russia. Later on, and Prabhupada initiated him also. And he was the first Russian disciple. Then he becomes a devotee. Then that Gita that he was distributed to, he translates that to Russian. And underground, they start printing and publishing Gita in Russian language. And that's how the whole Krishna consciousness movement started in Russia. Just by one book distributed by Srila Prabhupada. So that is the potency of Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. Just one book distributed in one country, that one book, spread like wildfire, and now there's thousands and thousands of Russian devotees in Russia. Outside of India, the place which is flourishing the most is now Russia. There is another story. There was one man, one devotee, he was distributing books somewhere in America. And he came across an Asian guy who was a Buddhist. And he was distributing Gita. So what he did, in the middle of the Gita, there's the pictures. And one of the pictures is of the Dasavatar, right? You have Krishna with the Dasavatar. So because when this devotee found out, he's a Buddhist, he just pointed to the picture of Buddha, in that picture and said, we also worship Buddha, you can take the book. So this person thought Gita talks about Buddha, and he just bought the book. And he was actually from an Asian country. If I'm not mistaken, he was from Bhutan or some other Asian country right on the border of India. So he was flying back to his country, and as he's in the airplane, he picks up the book, Bhagavad Gita, that he had just bought, and he starts reading. Then he realizes, actually, this is not about Buddha, this is about Krishna. But he said, okay, whatever, He says, so what he does, when he goes back to his country, he's good friends with some Indian guy, so he gifts it to him as a gift. He tells him, when I was in America, in New York, or whichever city, someone sold me this book. This is your holy book, I think this is like your book from your country, so I want to give you this book as a gift. So that person, what he does, he takes that book and he just puts it in his bookshelf. And this Indian man who takes the book gets Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. He is a Pakka Mayavadi. And he just puts it in his library. One day his son comes in to his library, and his son wants to learn English. So what he does, he's searching through the library to pick a book, English book to read, so he can learn English. Out of all the books, he picks Bhagavad Gita as it is. He starts reading, and as he's reading different words he doesn't know, he's looking the meaning in the dictionary. So like this, he reads the whole Gita. He learns English, And not only does he learn English, he also becomes a devotee. The story doesn't stop there. Not only does he become the devotee, he becomes one of the main initial devotees in this country, Bhutan. He becomes temple president. He starts so many different namahatras, preaching centers. He builds a temple. And like this, he starts the whole Krishna conscious movement in Bhutan. I think it's Bhutan. His Holiness Badri Narayan Maharaj, he was once sharing this pastime. Either Bhutan or one of the other kind of like Asian countries on the border of India. So Maharaj was saying, just see the potency. One book distributed in America went all the way, to some small country, Bhutan, and created the whole Hare Krishna movement in Bhutan, just from one book. So that is the potency of Prabhupada's book. Just one book sold in Russia, completely liberated so many thousands of souls in Russia. One book that was somehow or other flew into Bhutan, started the whole Krishna conscious movement in Bhutan. And another part of the story is his Mayavadi father, he also later on becomes an initiated devotee. So this is the power of Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. Okay, we're over time. Another time I had more stories to share, but we'll stop here. Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, ki jai. Shri Gita Jayanti Mahamotsav ki jai. Shri Mokshada Ekadasi ki jai. Gantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Tai Gaur Premanande.